Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about The Girl in the Tower, Part 1. This is the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Now before we get started with our story, I just want to make a little side note. Normally when we do our stories, we talk about the person that the story is revolving around. But considering what the story entails and the events that transpired, we're going to go before the birth of the person that the story is actually about. And I think this story is very interesting in itself because Claudine is just as much of a part of this story, just as much as it's about Gypsy. And in order to fully understand Gypsy's story, we have to take a deeper look into Claudine's story. And I just also want to add a lot of the things that is going to be spoken about is from the various testimonies and the words of different family members. And the only thing that we truly really know that went on between Claudine and Gypsy is the testimonies and confessions that Gypsy would eventually tell authorities and interviewers after the events. But I digress. Without further ado, let's get to our story. Claudine Petrie would be born on May 3rd, 1967 to parents Claude and Emma Petrie, and she would be one of 5 siblings. It is also said that growing up, she was a very sickly child and at a very early age had heart murmurs. And when she had these heart murmurs, her parents would actually restrict her from doing a lot of events and chores around the house. And Claudine would actually use this to her full advantage and use her heart murmurs as a way of getting away from doing chores. And because of these heart murmurs and her other health issues that she dealt with growing up, she also had a special sleeping arrangement where she slept in the bedroom with her parents while her other siblings would actually sleep in the other bedrooms. And it is also said that because she never went outside and did chores, that she would just kind of stay with her mother. And it is said that her mother would actually baby and spoil her a lot, to the fact that if Claudine was ever sick, that her mother would tell the other kids to go outside and stay quiet and not to wake or disturb Claudine. It is also said by the other siblings that they pretty much had to work for everything they had, but Claudine just got whatever she wanted. And it has also been speculated that if she by some chance didn't get what she wanted, as a form of retaliation, she would actually steal from her parents. Another sibling would actually go as far to say, you know, neither one of us went to college, but Claudine got to go to college. None of us had a car bought for us, but Claudine had a car bought for her. And Claudine would actually go to college and she would study to be a nurse and study to become a nurse's aide. By 1990, Claudine was just your typical 24-year-old girl. She would go to work, she would come home, and she would regularly like to go out with her friends and dress up and look nice. And in the fall of 1990, she had decided to go with her friends to a bowling alley. On this particular night, however, she would actually meet 17-year-old Rod Blanchard. And it is said that when they met, it was just love at first sight. He was just completely in awe and hooked with Claudine. And he would later say in an interview she was the only one that really stood out. You know, he just said that she had her hair a certain way, she had a face, a smile that was definitely different from most women that you would normally meet. And by the end of the night, they would actually exchange phone numbers and begin dating within the next 4 months. Within that time frame of the 4 months of them dating, Claudine would actually end up calling Rod and inform him that she was actually pregnant. And Rod, being raised in a very strong Southern background, had decided that he was going to marry Claudine and take care of his responsibilities. But however, this marriage would actually be short-lived. They would actually only be married for 3 months. Rod Blanchard would actually say in a later interview that by the time he was 18, he woke up one morning and just realized he was not in the place that he was supposed to be. And he had just felt like he got married for the wrong reasons. And he would actually tell Claudine that he wanted a divorce, but by no means was he going to abandon her and their child. And that if she ever needed anything, he would not hesitate to send her whatever she needed. So they would decide to get divorced. And at that point, after the divorce, Claudine would actually move back in with her mother and father. And on July 27th, 1991, Claudine would give birth to a girl and name her Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Rod would be present during the birth, and both Claudine and Rod had decided to name her Gypsy Rose. Gypsy because Claudine had always liked the name Gypsy, and Rose because Rod was a very big fan of the popular rock band Guns N' Roses. 3 months after Gypsy was actually born, Claudine would actually call Rod and inform him that their daughter was having sleep apnea. And she would tell him that when she was trying to sleep at night, that she just would completely stop breathing and would actually start having seizures, and would actually tell Rod that she needed money to buy her a CPAP machine. And without hesitation, Rod would actually send her the money to buy a CPAP machine for their daughter. It is also said around this time that Claudine became increasingly protective of her daughter and would refuse anyone to watch her other than her parents. So a lot of times when Claudine would actually have to go to work, her mother Emma would actually watch Gypsy until Claudine would actually return home. And this pretty much was how things went within the first 5 years of Gypsy's life, until Emma would actually become ill and Claudine would actually have to take care of her daughter Gypsy and her ill mother Emma. But family members would say that Claudine's treatment of her sick mother was not the best treatment that a child would treat their parent. A lot of family members would testify and say that Claudine would literally leave her mother in filth and completely neglect her and not feed her to the point that she would beg for food from starvation. When Gypsy was 5 in 1997, her grandmother Emma would actually pass away. Most would believe from the neglect and treatment that Claudine had given her mother and by starving her. And family members would also say that Claudine would actually take her mother's death very badly. And most would just say she only missed her mother because she was going to miss all the attention that her mother gave her. Because according to her siblings and family members, Claudine was just all about getting attention. And then she was not going to get attention from the one person that always babied her. And it's kind of sad to look back and think about it, that the very person that Emma had babied her whole life would be the person that would neglect her to the point of her death. After the death of her mother, Claudine would actually call Rod and inform him that not only did their daughter have multiple other medical conditions, but that she was going to be taking their daughter into surgery for a problem that she was having for being cross-eyed. And it is sadly the very beginning of a long amount of brutal events that would happen to Gypsy.